Hi everyone, Reverend Sarah Grady from St. Paul's United Church in Paris, and here I am today in the sanctuary to do a little check-in for you. It's interesting this week that we took a look at the chapter Why We Worry, Why We Judge, and talked about Matthew's gospel in relation to that. And it's interesting to me as we look towards tomorrow, March the 17th, where around the world people celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And you may have guessed by my last name, for those who don't know me or those who are just getting to know me or have never met me at all, I have Irish heritage. Grady is an Irish last name taken from O'Grady. When my Grady family emigrated from Ireland, they dropped the O and just became Grady. And on my mom's side, Gordon is also Irish. And back in 2010, we had the opportunity to travel over to what's known as the Emerald Isle. We went for 2 weeks, my family all together, and we spent time reconnecting with family that we hadn't seen or hadn't met before. We were touring around the countryside. It was beautiful. There was some inkling for us, some thought in the back of our head around the history of Northern Ireland, which is where both my mom and my dad's family are from. But we didn't really think about it on that trip. In 2018, I had the opportunity to go back to Northern Ireland and do a little bit more intentional work around the history of Northern Ireland, and that was with what's known as the Peace and Reconciliation Centre at Corrymeela. And Corrymeela is situated in a town called Ballycastle, and it is beautiful. And the work that we were doing there was learning about Northern Ireland's history around what's known as the Troubles, the years of political and social unrest between 1968 and 1998 when it ended with the Good Friday Agreement. It is a violent history. It is families torn apart. It is people fleeing for their lives. It is death and destruction. It is violence at all levels, the history of that in between. So if you're wanting to know that history, I'll encourage you to go and check that out yourself. But as we think about one of the questions we're asked this week, or one of the things we're asked, one of our directions is to share a story where you felt anxious, judgmental, or both. And the story I want to share with you is from my time in 2018 when I went back to Northern Ireland to do a little bit more intentional work around peace and reconciliation. So I traveled there with a group, some mostly United Church folks from across Canada. And one of our days we were in Belfast, and we were doing a walking tour of Belfast, and in particular we were going into what's known as the Shankill Road area, and there is what's known as the Peace Wall that separates Protestant and Catholic sides of the divide. The Troubles are often couched as that, as a Protestant-Catholic problem, but really it's a political problem between Irish nationalists and Irish separatists. So I'm not going to go into a whole history lesson around that, but just so you know that that's where this story is going, it's something to do with that. So walking through Northern Ireland, coming up from the Catholic side of the Shankill Road to go through the Peace Gates and go on to the Protestant side. It was a warm day, unseasonably warm for Northern Ireland in early May, but I had on a black jacket and underneath a colorful shirt, and so we were walking along, and I was a little bit behind the rest of the group with one of our other members who was a little bit slower in walking, and we were just chatting and walking along, and it was getting warm, so I took off my jacket, and immediately, it was crazy how immediate, this cab swerved up to me and said, "Miss, I would be careful about wearing that color shirt on the other side of the gate if that's where you're going. They won't appreciate it over there." I looked down, I was wearing an emerald green shirt. It's not something I would have ever thought of. I've always thought of Irish and green as part of the heritage. It's always been something that I've celebrated, but interestingly enough, it is not celebrated there by some people. Specifically, the Protestant side where we were going typically associates with orange, and the Catholic side with green. So that's what was happening there. So we went ahead, we got ahead, we met up with the rest of the group, and I let our guide know what happened, and he said, "Oh, I wouldn't worry about it." I'd already put my jacket on at this point and was pretty warm as we were walking along. He said, "Really don't worry about it. People will know that you're a tourist and that you're with me when they see us all in this big group. It should be fine." Well, at the end of our tour, we got to this peace garden, so a memorial site for where a lot of violence had taken place, and a tribute to and an homage to reconciliation and peace that people were hoping for and continue to work for. And here we were standing talking to this guide, me and this other woman who'd been behind the rest of the group, when all of a sudden somebody knocked over something. It kind of made this crazy sound. I think it was a chair, and it hit the ground, the concrete and the sidewalk, and he ducked. And he looked over at me and he said, "Oh, I thought somebody took a shot at you." Because by this point I had taken off my jacket again, feeling more comfortable and thinking that I was okay. As I thought about this question about this time when I felt anxious or judgmental, I thought about my experience of walking those two different places and feeling anxious about the color shirt that I was wearing and whether somebody would judge me for it. I felt like I was judging people around me for the clothes I was wearing, like what does it matter? But there's a history there that I'm not aware of and that people really have a hard time reconciling still. So that's just a story as we approach St. Patrick's Day for you. One of the things that I've always loved in my own life is Celtic music and Celtic melodies. And there's a beautiful Celtic melody. While we were at the Coromila Centre, one of the leadership at the Coromila Centre, Kieran Young Wimberley, offered us this book of Celtic psalms. So she's taken psalms and put them to Celtic tunes, and she put a beautiful setting of the 23rd Psalm to the tune of The Parting Glass. I've always felt like this is one of the most beautiful pieces of scripture to turn to in times that cause us distress and trouble, and so I want to leave you today with that tune and these words. The Lord's my shepherd, I'll not want. He lets me rest in pastures green. He leadeth me by waters still. He restores my soul, restores my soul. Even though I walk through the darkest vale, I fear no evil, for you're with me. Your rod and staff protect and guide. You comfort me, you comfort me. You prepare a table, a feast for me, in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with holy oil, my cup overflows, it overflows. Surely goodness and God's mercy great shall follow me all my days of life, and I'll dwell within the house of God my whole life long, my whole life long. May God's peace and hope find you this day wherever you are, and I hope that I get to see you very soon. Happy St. Patrick's Day, everyone.